rally. A fellow I'd met when I was in Washington gave me his card and told me if he could ever help me, well, I'd give him a call. And so after I got back in Kansas, I went into a situation where I really needed to find somebody that knew something about politics that I could lean on. And I looked at it and come up with this card, this phone number the fellow gave me, and I called him, and he said, well, the two best names I could tell you, people that could be helpful to you, would be Ronald Reagan or John Wayne. And he says, here's the phone numbers of both of them. But he says, you probably won't have much luck of getting John Wayne the next day or two because he's on a trip. But he said, Ronald Reagan, you probably get him. So I called Ronald Reagan's number.
Who is that? George Murphy you're talking to?
This is George Murphy that gave
Senator George Murphy?
And he was a senator from California that I had met when I was in Washington. And
I thought you met him in Times Square in New York, too.
That's where I met him at the,
That's not D.C., that's New York, Times Square.
There was a big rally promoting the idea of Barry Goldwater for governor, or for president. And that's where I happened to meet George Murphy. Anyway, I called Ronald Reagan's, the number he gave me for Ronald Reagan, and his wife answered the phone. Ronnie wasn't home, but she'd take my name and number, and she'd have him call me. And later...
Now this is good. This is how you need to do it.
Before I got home that evening...
Because you'll never get your thoughts together back there. I've seen you try. You just need to do this.
I called home to see if I needed to pick up anything, and my wife told me I just got a call. It was rather interesting. He'd never heard of it, but a guy named Ronald Reagan had called, and he had left a number for me to call. So I called it, and he was home.
Well, that movie actor guy for General Electric?
He was a movie actor, but he traveled the country promoting General Electric more than anything else.
Yeah. But
anyway, talking to Reagan, I told him I just needed George Murphy to give me his name and told me that he might be helpful. And he said, well, best chance if we could talk sometime. He said, the next about 2 weeks from now, I'm going to have some time. I'm going to. He looked at his calendar and and he said, on that Sunday, I'm forgetting now the exact date, but he said that Sunday I'll be leaving Washington, going back to California, and I'll be riding a train, and he says I'll be coming through Kansas during that weekend, and he says I could stop off there and we could visit then, if that might be something. So I got his schedule and met him at Newton, Kansas, picked him up at 6 o'clock in the morning off of the Santa Fe Chief that he was riding, and drove him down to Wichita and put him in a hotel. We spent quite a little time getting acquainted and all, and matter of fact, since he didn't have much
what did y'all talk about?
Well, we learned...
I guess you were working on the Goldwater campaign then?
Well, I don't know what all we talked about. We talked about...
I mean, that was the reason to get him there, is to work or help you on the Goldwater campaign.
Well, I didn't tell him what all. I just told him I had some problems I need to think about, and I need to talk. And he said, well, anyway, he spent all that week in Wichita. I remember I got him in the hotel. He wanted to see if we could find a store. This was a Sunday evening, and
so where'd you get him a room at the where was it, Lancers, or where did he stay?
The big hotel right across from.
Was it Lancers or something like that?
Yeah, I think it is.
Lansing.
Well, it was the main hotel right at the Lancers, right across from.
And then we had to drive him to Henry's to get him some black socks.
Yeah, we drove over to walked over just a block and a half over to Henry's. Walked over.
Well, I remember him mentioning in the car he needed some black socks.
Yeah, he needed socks.
He said, let's go to Henry's.
Yeah, all right. And that's where we got him. And but anyway, I just sort of got acquainted with him that week. And
so was he still a Democrat then?
well, he hadn't really got involved in the political game that much. He had been a Democrat. Yes, he was a Democrat.
But he didn't really get throughout.
He was active in the Screen Actors Guild out in Los Angeles, and was active in of course that's pretty much dominated by Democrats. But anyway, he spent that week in Wichita, and I had something planned for him every day. And remember, we had dinner.
And so he did his great speech then for Goldwater there in Wichita, down at the field house in Wichita, of his the famous speech, A Time for Change.
No, he didn't make that. You mean Reagan?
Well, Reagan, yeah, in 1962, yeah, he did, because I got the brochure on it in 1963, June, that he did A Time for Choosing.
Well, that was
It's his Time for Choosing, his famous speech.
Yes, well, that was the deal he made on national TV.
But he gave that same speech in Wichita.
Well, yes, that's right, yes.